Hello everyone, welcome to the Q&A of Python. Now, lots of people have asked me to cover the important questions based on Python language, which can be asked in the either in the college admission or in the college placements. So, I've created this video. It consists of around 35 questions related to the Python, and I've tried to cover the most important questions that can be asked in those interviews. And don't worry, this is not gonna be the only video that I'm making around 35 questions because 35 are very less. I'll be keep on making other videos with more and more the questions I will get. I will keep on making the videos to help you out. And I can assure you one thing that whatever the interview you will be sitting in, if you have gone through this video, all of my these videos based on question answers, I'm telling you around 70% of the questions will be from these. And that's my challenge over it. Okay, we have covered almost all the like from basic to at intermediate level, all the questions that can be asked in the interviews. Now, one thing I want to tell you, in interviews they don't ask you very high-fi questions unless you have written in your profile something related with a very high-fi thing in the or related with Python. If you have written that you know Python language, they will ask you basic questions. They just want to check whether you really know Python or not. Okay, they just want to check that because rest they know whatever the problems you will face, you can just Google it and solve it out. So they don't bother about it. They just want to know whether you really know basics of Python or not, because basics are always important. So here in this video, we have covered some basic questions related to the Python, and let's see. So our first question is, what is Python and what are the benefits of using Python? So that's the basic question. There's a very first question that can be asked. Okay, like what is Python? So I want to tell you something that I mean you have if you are preparing for those interview questions, if you are watching this video, I'm pretty sure you have got a pretty good idea what is Python language, right? You have seen you've gone through the tutorials and all, or you have studied somewhere Python, right? So what I want you to do is like when this question will be displayed, before the answer comes, there will be a like a 5 second there's a stopwatch kind of a thing. And what I want you to do is I want you to process that in those 5 seconds. I want you to process that question in your brain and try to make up an answer inside of your brain, because you have already studied whatever I'm going to ask you, right? Whatever the questions will come over here, you've already studied about it. Okay, so try to fetch that thing from your wherever that is hidden inside of your brain. Okay, try to fetch it. Okay, because that is the most important thing in interviews, that whenever the question is asked, how fast can you fetch that answer from your brain, because brain has got everything, whatever you have studied is there. The only problem is how you can fetch it, how fast can you fetch it, or whether even you can fetch it or not. So in 5 seconds try to fetch that it. Obviously I'm going to tell you the answer. If you couldn't fetch it, learn it right now, understand that concept over here again, and then try to do this kind of an exercise again in some other video. Okay, so my first question is, what is Python and what are the benefits of using Python? So there's a 5 second stopwatch. Try to think about this question and get its answer. Okay, so here's the answer. Python is a programming language with objects, modules, threads, and exceptions, and an automatic memory management. So we when in the Python language we have already said there are lots of, like we worked in the object-oriented programming setup. In that we have worked with the objects, and then Python also consists of lots of modules like OS module, and many other modules are there. Then we go through threads and exceptions. We work in my if you have seen our tutorial on Python, there's the last video based on exception and error handling. This you see how we creating our own exceptions and errors. So the same thing. And then there's automatic memory management. Now what is automatic memory management? Now automatic memory management is we don't need to specify a variable with its what kind of a data type that variable is going to keep. Now whatever the value we give to that variable, that kind of a data type it converts into. Okay, right now if suppose let's say some variable I is equals to 10. Right now I is an integer type of variable. Okay, but at the somewhere in the program we can say I is equal to uh, cost of. So what happens here, this I variable becomes string. So same thing is here. You don't It you don't need to define its data type. It can automatically adjust its data type. That's why it is called automatic memory management, and that is a very special thing of Python. Now, benefits of using Python. The benefits of Python are that it is simple and easy. Obviously, the Python language is like a writing in English language. It's completely script based language. Okay, it's portable. We can easily port other programming languages into our into Python language. Like there is some kind of a C programming language, C script, and we wanna call that script. We wanna use that C programming language inside of our Python. We can easily do it, and the biggest example of it is OpenCV. Now OpenCV module. Now OpenCV module is basically is written in completely in C, but we use it a lot in Python during image processings and all. Then it is extensible. Yes, it uses a built-in data structure. It has got its own built-in data structure that makes it, a little bit fast. Although it's not a very fast language, but yeah, and it's an open source. Obviously most of the programming languages are open source, but there are few programming languages that are not open source, but this is an open source, and that's the benefit. And this benefit, basically this open source benefit, feels when we compare it with the, we use this Python language in data science field and we compare it with the SAS language. Now SAS language is a basically a not an open source language, it's a premium language, and that's why Python works way better in that field. It's open source, we can do a lots of stuff with it. Okay, so let's go to our next question, and that is how Python is interpreted. So we think about this question. I was just going to give the answer, but I want you to think about this question for the 5 seconds. Okay, now Python language is an interpreted language, that we know for sure. Okay, it's an interpreted language, not a compiler language. That's why it sometimes is also called a scripted language. I will later in the, there's also a question based on scripting, so later we will cover that part. So it says Python program runs directly from the source code. Yes, all the interpreter language basically runs directly from the source code. We don't create a object code of that program. It directly runs from the source code and creates an and convert into an intermediate language, which is again translated into a machine language that is executed. So this is the process of the interpretation of the Python language. Okay, whatever the program that we write. Okay, so next question is, what is the difference between list and tuples in Python? So just think about it for 5 seconds. What are the differences that we learned? Okay, so lists are mutable, and that means they can be edited, whereas tuples are not mutable. They are immutable, which means we cannot edit them. So that is the plus point in the list, that we can anytime at any moment we can edit them. But tuples, they once we define the tuples, that those are a fix. Lists are slower than tuples. Yeah, this mutable thing makes it a little bit slower because they can be edited. That's why they are a little bit slower than tuples, and tuples are faster than the list because they are whatever we have defined it earlier. They are that. Now, if we talk about the syntax, now the only difference in the syntax is the list uses big brackets and the tuples use parentheses. That's the only difference between that's the important difference between list tuples. There are lots of differences, but these are the important ones. Okay. Then the next question is, what type of language is Python? Programming or scripting? Think about it. I've already, in my first question, second question or first question, I've already told you about it. So think about it. What is it? So Python is capable of scripting, but in general sense it is considered as a general purpose programming language. So what is a scripting language? A scripting language is basically like a, in which we give it some commands and it keeps on executing it in the manner like interpreting it. Basically means like whatever the command we have given the first line, it will execute it. Whatever the task needs to be done from it, it will do it. Then it will go to the second line and then complete the task like with the second line and then goes to the third line. So like the big one more big example of script language is Bash language, because that we use in Linux or in the even in the Windows also or Mac. This is a Bash language, and in this what we used to give whatever there are like lots of commands that we need to be done. Okay, so what we write all those commands inside of a editor and run that program. So what it does, it executes all those commands and gives the output. So that's why it is called a scripting language, and same thing is done in the Python also. It is an interpreted language, so every command, every line is interpreted, then it goes to the next line. But it also called a general purpose programming language. Why it is called a programming language? Because sometimes when it is working with a C language like an OpenCV case, or when it is working with the other languages, then the compiling thing happens in this the programming language, and that's why it is called a programming language. So let's get on to the next question. What is namespace in Python? Think what is namespace. You can, by the word, I think you can understand it, but try to think it. A namespace is a naming system used to make sure that the names are unique to avoid naming conflicts. Okay, so like name, this is a use basically. There are lots of predefined keywords in the programming in Python language. So to differentiate between those keywords and your own variables, so to create the difference between them, we use this kind of a concept in this namespace, that you can't use names that are already predefined in the Python language. Like there's a word import is defined a keyword in the programming language, so you can't use it as a variable or as a keyword. Okay, so this is called a namespace, which helps us avoid these naming conflicts. Then what are Python modules? Name some commonly used built-in modules in Python. Think about what are modules. Now, Python modules are files containing Python code. This code can either be a function, classes, or variables. A Python module is a .py file containing executable code. Now, sometimes what happens is that there are lots of programs, not a very big program that we have wrote, but there's some code that we it's like we don't require to use it in that program. We don't want to display it, okay, to everyone. So what we do it, we create a module of it. We create another file of that program, and we import that program into our main program. So that is called creating a module. So that short program that we have separated from the main program is a module. We have created a module. Suppose I name it like Maverick. There's some code, I have named it Maverick, and I called it into the main program by saying import Maverick. Now that program can contains anything, class, methods. Now if we want to call the separate class, so we will say from Maverick import that class. Okay, so we don't have to import the whole, we don't have to take the whole program. We just need a particular code from that program into our main program. So that is called modules. And some basic modules are OS, sys, maths. Like OS module is used to access the whatever the operating system you are using, its features. Then sys module, same system features you are used by this module. Then math module is used to use all those mathematical operations. Then random module is used to create a random numbers. Then date time module is used to create date and time. Then JSON. This is okay. So these are all the modules, some basic modules inside of a Python. Now let's get on to our next question. What are local variables and global variables in Python? Think about it. Now global variables are those variables declared outside a function and or in a global space are called global variables. Now I'm going to explain it in my way. Suppose there are like you have created a program and it has got a one function in it. Okay, so what you did on the function, whatever the variables that you have declared inside of that function, they are all called local variables because their scope is only inside the function. You can't use that variable outside of that function. But the global variables which you have created outside the function, and they can be accessed anywhere in the whole program. So that's the difference between our global variables and local variables. The next question is Python case sensitive? You can answer it very easily. I know. Yes, Python is a case sensitive language because capital V, variable with a capital V and variable with a small v are two different words or two different variable names. Okay, so yes, Python is a case sensitive language. The next question is indentation required in Python? Nothing about it. What is the use of indentation and how in no other language we use indentation, but in Python we use it. So indentation is necessary for Python. It specifies a block of code. All code within the loops, class, function, etc. is specified within an indented block. So what basically indentation does, like in most of the programming languages we've seen, they use curly braces or some kind of a braces system to define the set of a code has to be run inside of a loop, or is that set of code inside of a function or the class. But here we use indentation. Indentation means space, a specific amount of space. So what we use, we declare a function, and whatever the code that we need to write inside of the function, we put it inside of a little bit of a space. We give a little bit of backspace, and uh, we give it a little bit of forward space, and we write that program over there. So that much of the code shows that it is inside of that function. That's why this indentation is used. And yeah, as I told you, that's a specific amount of the space that we provide. That's a specific number. Because if somewhere you provided 3 space and somewhere you provide a 4 space, it will start giving you an error. Then next question is, what is the difference between Python arrays and lists? Think about it. What are Python arrays and what are lists? Now, arrays and lists in Python have the same way of storing data, obviously. They both are used to store data. But arrays can hold only a single data type elements, whereas lists can hold any data type elements. Like arrays, if you want to store an integer inside of an array, then all the values inside of an array should be integers. There can't be a float or a string. If you want to store strings inside of an array, then all the values should be a string. But in lists we can store in list we can store strings in the integers, or even a list we can store it. Whatever we want to store, we can store it. Then array needs declaration and lists don't. Yes, lists are like a predefined thing inside of an Python language, but array needs to be declared inside of a Python, because it doesn't come with the Python basic syntaxes. Okay, lists are the Python basic data type, but arrays are not. And arrays are useful basically because to perform arithmetic operations which cannot be done in the list. Like you can't divide a list by 2 or something. You can't multiply some number inside of a list, but you can do it with the array. And this array, we use array either by import. There are like two modules, basic modules to import arrays. One is import array. Second is import numpy. Numpy also is used to use this array concept inside of a Python. So now let's get on to the next question. What are functions in Python? Think about it. Now function is a block of code which is executed only when it is called. To define a Python function, the def keyword is used. Now function basically, sometimes we want to use that certain code, that some 5-6 lines of code, lots of places in the program, okay? Or you want lots of different outputs using that 5 lines of 6 lines of code. So what we basically do, we create a function of that code, and we call that functions everywhere in the program. And to create a function, we use a def keyword, and then we name that function after it. Like if you want to create a function named glass, so we use def glass, and then in the parentheses we provide whatever the parameters we are giving it. Okay, so here you see there's an example also. It says def new function, there are parentheses, then it says print hi welcome to code warriors, and the next line outside of the function we are calling it new func. Okay, so what happens whenever that new func is called, it will print hi welcome to code warriors, as you can see in the output section. So let's get on to the next question. What is underscore underscore init underscore underscore? Think about it. Okay, it is an object oriented programming concept. Oops. Now init is a method or a constructor. I would not call it just a method. It's a very special method inside of a object oriented programming, and it's an, or you can say, the constructor in Python. This method is automatically called to allocate memory when a new object or instance of a class is created. All classes have init method. Now, yes, all classes have init method, but in some classes we declare it, in some we don't. It works in the background as a hidden. Okay, so whenever we create a class, we inside of the class we create this init underscore underscore init method, as you see in this example over here. And whenever we create an object using that class name, at that time that init function is called. That's why it is called an constructor, because constructor are called when a constructor are created or used or called whenever an object is created with a class name. So you see, when we are creating this object over here, e1 is equal to employee, and then parentheses we are giving it some string, then numbers, and at that time only this init method is called, and it is applied. We don't have to call it explicitly. Okay, so this is init method. Now, what is a lambda function? Okay, this is a very special function inside of a Python. Think about it, you must have studied it somewhere. Okay, this is an anonymous function, is known as lambda function. This function can have a number of parameters but can have just one statement. Okay, this is a very special function. What happens in this function is you can only write or give it a one statement. Okay, like in most of function we can write 5 to 6 statements, not as many statements we want to write it. But in lambda we can write only one statement, but we can provide it any number of parameters. Like here in the example you can see we wrote a is equal to lambda we create a function, and it has passed two parameters in this, x comma y, and with an and only we have given one statement, x plus y. So what happens here is the function name is a. It's a lambda kind of a function with two parameters, x comma y, and with one statement, x plus y. We can give as many parameters we want, but only one statement we can use. And we called it like a normal function, print a, and we passed in two parameters, 5 comma 6, and we got the output 11, as there is only it says x plus y is 11, 5 plus 6. Okay, so next question. What is self in Python? Okay, in previous here, okay, more previous, I guess. Yes, in this slide you have seen we have used in the this def init, we have used this self variable over here, self argument, sorry, over here. Now that's the question regarding it. What is self? Okay, so I'm going to get back to that question. What is self in Python? Think about it. I've already given you the idea what is self. Think about it. Now, self is an instance or an object of a class. In Python, this is explicitly included as the first parameter. However, this is not the case in Java, where it's optional. Now, in other programming languages, this is optional to use self. Most of the good programmers use it, but not everyone. But in the Python, it's like required to use it. There's no optional in this scene. Okay, so self is an instance or an object of a class. Basically, when we write a function or method inside of a class, we first parameter we give it self, then we give other parameters that are being called from the whenever that method is called. So what self does, self stores the object value, like whatever the object in which is using that method, which is calling that method, whatever the object is being used, the value of that object is being passed to this variable self, this sorry argument self. So self contains the object, and if you have seen my video on these attributes and methods and attributes video, then I have in very detail I've explained what is self is. It is used to, sometimes we create like 2 to 3 objects with the same class name, and we call a method of a class. So we call that method by using some object name, right? But that class don't know what object is being called, because we haven't passed an object variable, an object like name of the object to that class. We haven't passed it, so we don't that class method don't know what object is being used over there. So that's why we use the self variable. That what self variable extracts the object from the main function, that which object we are using. Okay, so it helps to differentiate between the methods and attributes of a class. Exactly, if you are means attribute like there are two objects, both objects are using different attributes, so it helps us differentiate between them. The self variable in the init method refers to the newly created object. Now, when we create a use the self in init method, so init method is called whenever the object is created. So it extracts that object from there. While in methods, it refers to the object whose method are called. That's what I have just told you. Okay, whatever the object, whatever the method is being called, by which object, now that object value will be passed to the self. Okay, so let's get on to the next question. What does this? Okay, there is this smaller. It needs to be full bracket over there. A big bracket, sorry, not a curly bracket. What does this big bracket colon colon minus one big bracket do? Just don't mind it. It's not a curly. It's a big bracket. Okay, think about it. What will happen if we use this? Now this is used to reverse the order of any array or a sequence. Means it is you. It can like suppose there is a list or a tuple or an array, whatever there is. If we use this method, if we use this not a method, if we use this operation with that list or an array, then what it does it reverse order the that complete list. Minus one means starting from the end point. Okay, sorry, minus one, yes, basically minus one is basically used for starting from the end point, and but here it is at the minus one is used at the stepping point. It is deciding the stepping point, but it is saying use minus one, and in on the starting point and ending points are or it does not define over there. That means it is starting from the 0 and ending at the end point of the list, but stepping is minus 1. That means it is saying start from the end point and end at the 0. So it is saying just go on, just reverse order the everything. So that is why this is used to reverse order the string. You can this question can be asked in a different way in the interviews. They can say how just so they can say in one line reverse the list or reverse an array. How can you reverse an array in one line? Okay, so this operation is used at that moment. Then next question is, how do you write comments in Python? Now that's a very simple thing. If you're using Python, then you must be using the comments to understand it easily. And comments in Python starts with hash character. Now whatever we write after using that hash keyword, whatever you write after it, it will be all commented. Comments means that will not be run by the interpreter. However, alternately at times commenting is done using doc strings. Yes, we also use that using triple quotes sometimes. Now this is an example of using a comment. Like during the interpretation of this program, it is not using that line that has got hash in the start. Okay, so next question is a very simple question. How will you capitalize the first letter of string? Now in this, it's a used as a basic function of a string. Now this capitalize, I already told you, capitalize method capitalize the first letter of a string. Okay, whatever the string you want to capitalize, you just like you use this capitalize method and it will just capitalize, make the first letter capital. Okay, next question. How will you convert a string to a lowercase? There is a simple method to convert a string to a lowercase, and that is stg.lower over here. Okay, now let's get on to the next question. What is the purpose of is, not, and in operators? Now think about it. This is why the words you can understand it, but yeah, if you have used it, you will be more clear. Operators are special functions. They take one or more values and produce a corresponding results. Yes, that's what is operators. They are like special functions which take like lots of values and gives out the corresponding result related with it. Now, is operator, what it does, it takes two operands and it tells whether it is true or not. Like so they have given this example. It says a in a double quotes is a in a single quote. Yes, it is true because they both are characters. Okay, whether you write in double quotes or in single quote, they both mean same thing as a character. So is basically used like a equal to operator. Then not operator returns the inverse of the boolean value. Like yeah, it is like a not equal to, but in giving the answer like in a boolean way. Like suppose it says um, if you have given it any value like true, if there is some value true and you are using the not operator over there, then it will give you the value of false. Okay, Then there's an in operator. It checks whether some element is present in some sequence. Like you can check it like if a in list, list consists of, suppose there's a list. Okay, start from the beginning. Suppose there's a list, says a list contains of a comma b comma c comma d, and lots of elements are there in the list, and you say a in list this. Okay, so what will happen? It will check whether if a is present over there, it will give you true. If a is not present there, it will give you false. So that's in operator. Okay, so next question. What is a dictionary in Python? Now, it's a very good data type, important data type basically. This is a built-in data type in Python. It's called dictionary. It defines one-to-one relationship between keys and values. Yes, this data type contains like you have used lots of variables and their values. You've just passed it into a kind of a list way. Okay, that is what becomes a dictionary. There you have given it some keys and their values. So like you suppose you have created a dictionary with the name area dictionary, and you have given it a one key square, and in the value you have given it its whatever the area of that square is. Then you have created another key rectangle, and you have given it its area of that rectangle. Then same thing for the triangle. So that's how you are creating a keys and their values, and that can be easily extracted also, like whatever the key values you want. But like you want the area of the square, you just easily say area dot square, and it will give you the value of that square. So that's how it works, dictionaries. Then the next question is, how can files be deleted in Python? Inge, how are you gonna delete some files in Python? There are lots of methods, and one of the most good method is, or popular method is, os.remove. Now os is a module that we have talked in like first, second or third question somewhere. We've talked about the modules. There we have told you os is a module that uses the methods of your operating system. So basically os.remove is like a remove feature of your operating system. It will remove the files from your operating system. So that's why os.move is used. Now same os module is also used to extract file path and all. Okay, so next question. Does Python have a oops concept? You all know its answer if you have studied Python. Yes, Python is an object-oriented programming language. Basically, it's an object means like mostly it is used as an object-oriented programming language. This means that any program can be solved in Python by creating an object model. Obviously, if it's an object-oriented programming, it will be used with creating an object modules inside of it. And however, Python can be treated as a procedural as well as structural language. Yes, Python is a programming language. So one of a kind programming language, which is also structural, procedural, object-oriented, functional, all kinds of this. It can be written in lots of ways. So we can also say Python is a procedural language, structural language, or object-oriented programming, any kind of concept. What are Python libraries? Name a few of them. Now, Python libraries are a collection of Python packages in like a modules. Some of majorly used libraries are like NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, scikit-learn, and many more. Now, I told you NumPy library is used to use as array feature instead of a Python. Then Pandas are libraries used to process work out with our data frames in basically in data science field. Matplotlib library is basically used to plot graphs, and then scikit-learn library consists it consists of lots of features of related with our machine learning or deep learning concepts. It contains those features. Then what is split used for? Okay, we have seen lots of use of split and lots of data types. The split method is used to separate a given string, list, etc. in Python. Yes, we can use it in the strings also, in lists also, in lots of data. You can use the split method. What it does, it separates that list. Like if you have used the split method and give it an index, it will split that list from that index or the string. What is polymorphism in Python? Polymorphism means the ability to take multiple forms. So for instance, if the parent class is a method name ABC, then the child class also have a method with the same name ABC having its own parameters and variables. Now, by the word polymorphism, you would have got poly means many, morphism means form. So, like one thing that has many forms, multiple forms. So in the Python, we can create like lots of functions with the same name. Same thing we can, they've given the example of like class. We can create a parent class with the name ABC, then also a child class with the name ABC. Okay, so both of them have their own different features, their own different working, but doesn't matter, they both have the same name, and they will be differentiated basically with the in the class with their objects, with their objects, or the parameters that we'll pass. And same thing in the methods or functions also, it will be differentiated based on their parameters that we are passing. Then next question is, what is defined encapsulation in Python? No, encapsulation means binding the code and the data together. A Python class is an example of encapsulation. Encapsulation means you put a bunch of a code and put it inside of a something. And class is an example of it because you create a class and you put lots of methods, attributes inside of that class and you packed it all. Okay, inside of the class. Now that is all inside of the class, cannot be easily accessed outside. And if you have used a private or protected access specifiers, so it will be more hard to use it. So that is called put us some amount of a code. Functions are also example of encapsulation, but they are very basic examples. You put a certain code and put it inside of something. That is called encapsulation. Then next is, how do you do data abstraction in Python? Now, data abstraction is providing only the required details and hiding the implementation from the world. So, data abstraction is basically used. Sometimes you create a program, but you don't wanna show a lots of steps. You don't wanna, reveal everything of that program. You wanna keep it hidden so that it cannot be, you know, copied or accessed by the wrong person. So, what you do, you hide lots of details of that program. That is called data abstraction, hiding the implementation or the certain code of that program. Now for that we use interfaces and abstract classes that you can check it out in my tutorial videos on class. Basically, I've explained about abstract classes. Then the next question is, does Python make use of access specifiers? Now it is related with the previous question we talked about um, with the data abstraction, and a little bit of its concept comes over here in this question. Does Python make use of access specifiers? Think about it. What are access specifiers first thing? Now access specifier, I'm going to explain first what are access specifiers. Now access specifiers are like provides access to some data. Okay, and what kind of access it is providing? There are like three kinds of accesses. One is public, then there is a private, and there is a protected. Okay, these three access are there, and yes, Python provides these access specifiers. And as it says, Python does not deprive access to an instance variable or a function. Python lays down the concept of prefixing the names of the variable, function, or method with a single or a double underscore to imitate the behavior of protected and private access specifier. Now, public means whatever the code you are writing, it is all public. But if you want to do it protected, like you want to do some method, you want to make it a protected, or you want to protect your variables or function. So what you do, you behind that function name or that variable name, you put an underscore. Now that underscore makes it protected variable or a protected um, method. Then if you put a double underscores, then it will become a private method that cannot be accessed very easily. Okay, so these are access specifiers and how you can use them. The next question is, what is negative index in Python? Very simple, we have already discussed it, in that splitting one. Now Python sequence can be indexed in positive and negative numbers. For positive index, 0 is the first index, 1 is the second index, and so forth. For negative index, -1 is the last index, and -2 is the second last index, and so forth. Now when we do indexing, we say let's suppose there's a string with a name, let's say mav, with the name mav. There is a string. Then if we say mav and we give it an index 0, then it will extract the zeroth value, whatever is available at present the first variable, whatever the value is at the first position. Then if we say mav 1, it will extract the second position, value of second position. But if we say mav minus 1, then it will extract the last, whatever the value present in the last position. And same way, if we say minus 2, it will take the second last item from that list, from that string. So that is called negative indexing in the Python. How can you convert a number to a string? It's a very simple thing. All you have to do is you have to use either a str method, or if you are converting into octal or hexadecimal, you can use oct method or a hex method. So what you do, you use a str method, and inside of the parenthesis you write that name of that number and will convert it into a string. Same thing for the oct and hex. Now mention the use of this double forward slash operators in Python. This is a special thing. Now it's a floor division operator which is used for dividing two operands with the result as quotient showing only digits before the decimal point. Now this is used to divide two numbers, but the thing is it only displays the integer value of the output result that we are getting it. That's what is called floor division operator, or sometimes also called integer division operator. Because like let's say suppose you are dividing, here I have given an example of 10 divided by 5, but if we say let's say 9 divided by 5, so what is going to be the output? Basically 9 divided by output will be 1.8 if we use a normal division method. But in this case, if we use 9 double backslash or double forward slash 5, then the output will be 1. It will remove whatever is whatever is after the decimal point. So that's floor division operator. If we want, when sometimes we want the output of a division as integer only, we don't want decimal, we use this floor division method. The next question is how to return the binary of an integer. There's some integer, we want its binary number. How are you gonna do it? There's a simple method of it which is called bin method, bin, short form of binary, and we use this method. Whatever we write inside of that binary method, bin, it will convert into a binary number. Then next question is what is the difference between remove, del, and pop? Now we have already discussed this remove method. Now what remove does, it removes the first matchmaking value. Now suppose there is this list given here, li is equal to a, b, c, d, and if I say li dot remove b, so and when we will print li, then the b will be removed. It will remove the first match, whatever the first value it will get. Suppose there are two b's, it will remove only the first b and print the rest of the list. Then the next method is del. It removes an element by index. Now here we were passing the whatever the value that we want to remove in the remove word. In the del, whatever the value we want to remove, we give its index. So if we are giving it index 0, it will remove the value from index 0 and will print out B, C, D. Then the pop. Pop removes an element by index and return that element. So what happens, this is our list, and if we did li.pop2, it will give you the output whatever the value is over there, and then if you print li, it will remove c from here. There will be no c, but while popping it, it will give you the output as c. And if we are not putting any index in the pop, we directly say li.pop, no indexing, then it will remove the last element. The next question, what is the difference between .py and .pyc files? Now .py files contains the source code of a program, whereas pyc file contains the byte code of your program. We get byte code after compilation of py file source code. .py files are not created for all the files that you run. It is only created for the files that you import. Okay, look, suppose you are you have written your one program, and in that you have called some module. Suppose you called a numpy module or opencv module. So for when that program, that your main program will be interpreted, then at the same time that numpy, whatever the program is inside of that numpy module, that will also be interpreted. Or if it's a Python program, it will be interpreted. If it's a C or any other programming language program, it will be compiled. So accordingly, for those programs, the .pyc extension file will be created, and for this program, .py file will be created. Now, before executing a Python program, Python interpreter checks for the compiled files. If the file is present, the virtual machine executes it. If not, it checks for .py file. If found, compiles it to .pyc file, and then Python virtual machine executes it. Now, basically, most of the time you will have your .pyc file stored in your computer, but if you don't, first it will check for that pyc file. If it finds it, it will execute that pyc file only. But if it doesn't find that file, what it will do, it will create a pyc file by interpreting that code. Now, obviously, if you have a pyc file, then you will save a lot of time, because your interpreter or a compiler does not have to run that file. Okay, so these are the questions, all 35 questions I covered in this video. Don't worry, these are not the only questions that I'm going to cover. I will make further videos related with this, based on the questions of the Python language for your interview help. And we will also be creating videos on the question related with the machine learning or on the computer vision, the questions that can be asked in the interviews. So we will be covering lots of topics. What are the course we will start? We will cover the topics later there. So check out our playlist and get a hold of it. See what are the playlists we are having, and accordingly we will create our question or Q&A videos later there. Okay, so see you in the next video of our Q&A.